mainly clear sky north.
The Legislature Today show continues. Don't forget to check local listings for a nightly recap on a cable access channel near you. The Legislature Today, hosted by Dale Wetzel, managing editor of Great Plains News and the Great Plains Examiner. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, too. And now, back to the Legislature Today show.
This is the Legislature Today. This is Dale Wetzel. We're coming to you from the Peacock Alley American Bar and Grill in downtown Bismarck, North Dakota. On the next segment of our show, we have the superintendent of the Botno School District, and we're going to be speaking to him about issues that come up with oil development in his region. Welcome, sir.
Well, thank you for having me this evening.
I understand that you were listening to the show for a while. I apologize for that. I didn't realize that you were on the phone for so long, so please accept my apologies.
Oh, that's not a problem. Not a problem at all.
Very well, sir. What is the effect on the Botno School District of oil development in western North Dakota? I guess that we don't normally think of Botno as being part of the Bakken, sir.
We're not hit as hard as the schools out in the western part. Many of my other colleagues are feeling the crunch much more than what we are right now. The activity here is not nearly as busy as it is out west right now. We are starting to see a little bit of action in the Souris area, which is just to the west of Botno. So we have seen a little bit of an increase of our student population this fall. Some of that, I do believe, is just due to families moving home, some people moving back to the area, and some of it is due to the oil activity that's happening around here and also in the western part of the state.
Do you have folks living in Botno, sir, that are working in the industry, even if there are not wells being drilled close by, so to speak?
Yeah, I would say that we have a few families. I guess I'm not sure how many, but we would have some. I know of individuals that graduated from the school here that work on the rigs out in the western part of the state that either still live back here or move to the Bismarck area. So we do have a few that transport on a daily basis or every couple weeks.
What do you think has been the effect of oil development on the school district, sir? Do you think it's been salutary or something else?
Well, I think it's been positive in a way that we have seen, I think, a little bit of an increase in our student population. There for a while, we were seeing a decrease. Currently, there's only 3 schools that are left in the county, Botno Public School, Newburgh United, and Westo Public Schools. And I'm also the superintendent at Newburgh United Public School, and all 3 schools did see an increase in their student population this past fall, whereas the trend before then had been where we had been declining by a few students, and the larger number of students that we're getting are at the elementary level, so that's always a promising sign if they're coming in at the elementary level, if they continue their way through and end up graduating from here.
We're speaking to Jason Kirsten. He's the superintendent of the Botno Public School District. Tell us a bit about yourself, sir. Where are you from originally, and for how long have you been the superintendent at Botno?
Well, actually, I'm from the county. I was born and raised in a farm just in between 2 small towns, Kramer and Gardena. I graduated high school from Newburgh United Public School back in 1984. Actually, I've never really left the county other than to go to college. My teaching positions and administration have all been in the county. I started teaching in Westope in 1989 as a math teacher, then took a position as teacher principal in Newburgh in 95, and then in 98 became the superintendent principal at Newburgh, and then in 2005 became the superintendent here at Botno Public Schools.
Where did you go to college, sir?
I went to college at Mayville State University, and then I got my master's through Northern State of Aberdeen.
And as far as, well, let me just back up a moment. One of the big items in the legislature is a proposal by the governor to essentially overhaul how state aid is paid to schools. And I wanted to know what your view was of this strategy.
Well, there's some pros and cons, I think, with any type of formula change, and obviously there's going to be schools that probably do a little bit better than other schools with that. That's kind of like House Bill 1358 right now, too. It's seeing changes at this point in time, and nothing's finalized with printouts that we've seen and looking at preliminaries. Our districts do seem to gain a little bit of money, and I think part of that reason is because we are seeing an increase in student enrollment. From what I can see with the formula, districts that maybe are seeing declining enrollment are possibly not going to see that much of an increase. So I think from a public standpoint, it can be very difficult when you're looking at that and seeing the increase in your per pupil payment, but yet the bottom line that a school district may get from the state might not be as big an increase as that per pupil payment might be.
And one of the things that you heard often in the legislative debate about this bill is that districts that are growing do fairly well. Districts that are not growing don't do as well. What do you think of that analysis?
Well, I think it's, from what I can see and what I understand of the current formula, that's kind of what I get out of it too. That it seems those districts that are seeing increasing enrollment are coming out pretty fair in the current or in the formula as it's presented right now, and so I would agree with that statement.
Where you mentioned House Bill 1358, which distributes oil tax money back to local governments, including school districts. How important is that to the well-being of your school district?
Well, I think the original version of 1358, and I know there's some changes to it. I think Representative Scarborough and the other individuals that put that together did a very nice job of putting that together, and I think the one thing that I think was really good with that is the way that formula is set up, it gets dollars to those areas that are really in need of it right now. Where the activity is, it's kind of following the activity. As I mentioned before, we probably here would not be impacted quite as much with that new formula within there. But it could affect us down the road because with the projections of increased production here in Bottineau County, I also like the fact that it had money set aside for EMS, fire, law enforcement, so I'm hoping that those are items that I know have been up for debate. I hope the items that will stay in that bill.
How stressed are the emergency services in your county as a result of the oil development?
Well, I don't know. Again, I don't know that it's hit us here quite as hard as what it has out west. I don't believe we're probably taxed in that area quite as bad. We don't have quite the traffic as they do out west. So I don't know that we've been as hard hit that way. But with what those counties out there have went through, with any type of increase or with the potential that's here for an increase, it does get to be a concern because those are things that our county could run into in the future.
What has oil development in your region done, sir, for the enthusiasm, if I could use the term, of students or for students for vocational education programs? How eager are the students to go to work in the oil industry?
Well, we actually have a few students or former students, like I mentioned before, that are out working in the oil fields. We have some students that are looking at graduating this year that have talked about doing that as well. And so I think with it being in our backyard, it probably makes our students think about it a little bit more, and knowing that they have that opportunity to do that without possibly traveling too far away from home right away as well.
Do you encourage them to go to work in the industry if they have an affinity for it, or do you encourage them to go to college? What sort of approach do you take?
Well, I guess the way we kind of would look at it here is, with the career or the courses that they've taken, those are all things that we kind of let each student kind of decide on their own, and give them a little bit of guidance one way or the other when they ask our opinion. I guess we don't necessarily try to push them one way or the other.
How difficult is your housing situation, sir?
We have a difficult time here with housing. We do have some houses and different apartment buildings that are going up or have went up, but it isn't true, and it is something when we're looking for staff here through retirement or people leaving to go teach in another school district. That's always getting to be a tough problem to find housing for our staff, and even find for people to find affordable housing when they move here from other areas.
How do you try to address that problem, sir?
Well, we try to work with our local realtors to help try to find places for our staff to live. I know the city and city council has been working on a plan, and there's basically a strategic plan to try to address that. And also, there, like I mentioned before, there are some different developments that are taking place. It's just with those developments, it does take time to get them put in place.
And as far as keeping teachers, hiring teachers, what has the turnover been in your district, and how difficult is it to hire teachers to the extent that you need to hire them?
Well, we currently have for this year we have eight openings that we're looking to fill. 5 of those 8 are due to retirements, individuals that are retiring from teaching. And the other 3 are, I think one was to take a job a little bit closer to home, where they're originally from, and the other 2 were just personal reasons to leave the district. So we've actually been able to fill 3 of those 8 already. So I guess the quicker we can get them out, the better opportunity we have. I worry more about ones that pop up maybe in June, or especially when you get to July. Those get to be a little bit harder to fill, but there are areas that are hard to fill. Math, science, those types of areas are tough to fill areas. So I guess the best thing is the quicker we can get them out there and interview, the better chance we have of filling the positions we do have.
You mentioned you had 8 openings. How many teachers do you have on your staff, sir?
With just teaching staff, or staff as a whole with paras and custodians and all those things?
I'm thinking about, you mentioned you had eight teaching openings. How many teachers do you have?
We're at 50 to 60 teachers, PK through 12.
So 8 is a significant number of openings, isn't it?
Yeah, it's keeping us busy this spring.
And these 8 openings, what subjects did these teachers teach?
We have 2 special ed. One of those special ed we filled. We had an English opening. That's been filled. We had a library media opening. That has been filled. And then we have a science position, elementary position, one more special ed position, and a FACS position yet to fill.
How many students do you have in your district, sir?
K through 12, we're a little over 600 students.
And what was it, say, 5 years ago? Do you know? What's the growth trend?
5 years ago,
I'm just trying to figure out what the trends are here.
I would guess we were at about 570 570 to 580.
Okay, so your trend is slowly upward.
It's slowly moving back upward, yes.
How about the other? You mentioned other schools in the county. Do you have any idea what their trend line is? I mean, you mentioned that they were growing. Are they growing more quickly than you are, or less? Or
Percentage-wise, probably about the same. Speaking on behalf of Newburgh, since I also work for that district, we went from 62 students K through 12 last year to 73 to start this fall. So we were up about 11 kids.
How much snow have you had up in your district this year, sir?
Way too much. Fortunately, though, we didn't get hit with that one that come through the southern part of the state here last Monday, but we still got plenty of it around, and she's making for an awful wet, going to make for an awful wet spring, and it's making it awful difficult for our spring activities to take place right now.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how difficult is it to have like spring sports and normal extracurricular activities when you have all of this snow and cold weather?
Well, it makes it really difficult. You got to give the coaches and students a lot of credit for keeping their heads up and working hard to try to make things work. A lot of indoor practicing, which can be very tough. I know our baseball kids are probably getting sick of just taking batting practice in the batting cage, and our track kids were getting, I'm sure, sick of running in the hallways, and I saw they were running a little bit outside today, so golf the same thing. So it's been difficult, but I got to give the coaches and students a lot of credit for keeping a positive attitude, and hopefully things will warm up across the state here a little bit and dry out a little bit so that some of these activities can take place.
Sir, we talked about the education finance bill a bit. What has your general impression been about how the legislature has done its work as it relates to elementary and secondary education?
Well, I think they do a nice job. All in all, it's very difficult. Like I mentioned before, with any type of bill that comes down through the legislature, there's always some schools that are going to feel that they've come out good, and some schools that don't come out so good, and it's tough to please everybody. So I think that they all do have a sense where they want to try to do what's best for the students in the state of North Dakota, and I do think all in all they have their best interest in mind when they're working through those bills.
One of the things that got a fair amount of attention early in the session were, for want of a better term, gun bills. Whether you can carry a gun in school, whether you carry a gun in a church or a public place. One of the bills that was defeated had to do with whether or not to allow someone to carry a concealed gun in a school if that person had a certain type of concealed carry permit and also had the permission of the school board. To what extent did you or the staff follow that debate, and what did you think about the idea of that approach to school security?
You know, on a personal note, that really made me nervous. The person would really have to take a look hard on how they were, in my mind, on how they were going to set up who was going to be able to carry and who's not able to carry. It's unfortunate that it's come to that point where we have to talk about those types of items to possibly be put into legislation. But unfortunately, that's kind of the sign of the times right now. I guess I'm, on a personal note, was not really in favor of that. I just don't think that would have been a positive for our district, in my opinion.
Are you glad that it's not a problem that you have to deal with, at least not right now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have a resource officer at your school, sir?
No, we do not. We try to work as close as we can with our local police department. Our sheriff does, and his deputies do try to drive around our buildings before and after school. They do come into the school, not only when we call them, but just to kind of stop by every once in a while to walk through and those types of things. So although we don't have a resource officer, we try to work with our county sheriff as much as possible.
Sorry, go ahead.
Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cough here.
It's not a problem. One of the things that is rather interesting to hear in the legislature is that the target, when all is said and done, is that the state of North Dakota will be paying approximately 80% of the instructional costs for school districts. And as you know, it wasn't that long ago that share was less than 50%. And I was wondering, does the fact that the state is proposing to pick up a much larger share of the tab, does that change how your school district does business?
Well, I think to a point it does affect it somewhat. I still am not, in all honesty, I'm not really clear on how the state is actually picking up the 80%. I know it works into that formula where it shows that they are, but I still don't quite see where that 80% is being picked up myself, and probably they need a little bit of schooling on how that actually is being done. I do have some concerns on how that 80% has come up with.
Do you think that? Do you think that this? What I was kind of driving at, sir, is that I was wondering if there was some sort of concern about a loss of local control if the state is paying most of the bill. Well,
that's a very good question. I guess I wouldn't really know how to answer that one at this time. So I'm going to have to pass on that one.
Okay. What has your school board been that involved in the education finance debate in the legislature, or is it just something you're kind of following from afar?
I guess more so myself following, and anything that I feel needs to be updated to the board, I update the board on it at meetings or through emails and that type of thing.
One of the things also that the legislature, that was debated a bit in the legislature, are certain requirements as to what courses to offer in school. Like there was a bill to require instruction in personal finance for 7th and 8th graders, and there was another bill to require instruction in world history specifically. I mean, what is your attitude about legislative attempts to tell you what you should be teaching?
Well, I think some of that, I think a lot of that should be more local control with that. Sometimes I think we can get into a situation where a person is mandated to do things and it becomes unfunded, and we have to end up funding it locally. And that's one concern I guess I would have sometimes with things that are legislated, whether it be, especially in the case where it's maybe specific courses or those types of things that have to be taught. Is if there's a dollar value that goes with it, who's going to fund it?
We've been speaking to Jason Kirsten. He's the superintendent of the Bottineau Public School District. Thank you for your time, Superintendent Kirsten. We appreciate having you on the air tonight.
Well, thank you for having me this evening.
It's been a pleasure, sir. This is the Legislature Today. My name is Dale Wetzel, and this has been the North Dakota Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties portion of our show. We're grateful to organizations like the Association of Oil and Gas Producing Counties for their financial support and sponsorship of our show, because without them we wouldn't have a show, and we do think that we impart some useful information to the people of North Dakota about the operations of the North Dakota Legislature. This is Dale Wetzel, and this has been the Legislature Today.
He's got a viewpoint you won't find anywhere.